What is going on, everybody? Welcome to week 3 of the Bestial Frenzies podcast. I'm here with my Bestial Frenzy, Mr. Andy. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing good. I'm here with my bestial friend, Theo.
Whoa, that's crazy. All right. um, it's been a big week, big week for GA.
Big week.
I think the big one that's on everyone's mind is the regionals announcements. They announced the locations of all of the regionals for the Dawn of Ashes seasons, and it's really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, they're giving them some weird swords. Yeti Gaming got one.
Yeah, I've never heard of
I don't
those
know.
guys.
Never heard of those guys, but yeah, no, we did actually get a GA regional. We were asked to host one, honored, and yeah, that's going to be August 12th. No, it's going to be really cool. But they're doing a total of 7 throughout the world. They're doing one in New Zealand, one in Canada, one in Australia, and then 4 in the United States. We got Houston, we got Florida, we got us and Missouri, and then we have one in SoCal.
Yeah, and so we talked a lot about it, like what the regionals were and sort of what you win from them last week. So we don't need to cover that again. But it's really cool that we've got an actual schedule in place, and I'm really looking forward to seeing who decides to travel and come out for all those events.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of them already have the registrations live. A couple of them didn't, I think, right away, but our registration is live for the Yeti Regionals. So if you're anywhere close to us, we'd love to have more players for that.
Yeah, absolutely. We're giving away 15 entire event kits. Everyone gets 7 silver packs on sign up, as well as the sweet entry playmat.
Yeah, it's so cool. I'm so happy they got all the information. That's so cool. The other crazy news, or I guess it's news that's going to be happening sort of throughout this week, is the FTC spoilers. We're into preview season, and they've given a couple different content creators some specific cards to spoil. The first one happened yesterday, and the last one is going to happen next Thursday. It's going to conclude with us. That's so we don't have anything today, but we will have one next week, and it's pretty exciting. So definitely stay tuned for that. We'll link all the other people who are spoiling cards just so everyone has access to all the stuff. I'm really excited to see all the new stuff.
It's gonna be really cool.
What kind of cards do you think they're gonna reveal? Like what are you thinking is gonna happen? Anything crazy or just like?
I think it's gonna be a lot of cards that involve counterplay and slowing down the game.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think one of the main things they want to do is I feel like the game's a little too fast right now. So they want to kind of bring that in and add counters to stuff. Like we've already seen with the very first spoiler they gave us, where it was like the garden reaction, where it prevented 3 attack damage of every instance that a unit would take. So that's really good against like its soul and stuff. And I think that's going to be kind of the theme of this set is they're going to kind of build up classes to be able to participate with other classes instead of just kind of solitaring themselves.
Yeah, I do agree. I think we're gonna get a lot of defense and counterplay and interactive cards just to sort of spice up. I know they've already revealed sort of the new a couple new card types like the fractals, the phantasms, I believe, which just also act as onboard permanents. So there's just gonna be more types of cards in the game, and I'm really excited to see what else they reveal. It's gonna be really really cool.
Yeah, for sure.
New cards that are not that were the relatively new spoiled cards are actually from the sealed kits that they just revealed. And so they're working on supporting like a sealed format where you buy the little kit and you build a deck out of your kit and you play each other in sealed. And to support that, they showed 2 new cards. Prismatic Spirit and Gate of Alterity. You want to talk about those real quick?
Yeah, so first off, I think what they're doing with the sealed kit is really good because I think the limited, like the draft for this game is exceptional. I think they've done a good job of making it like a good format, but the ability to play it is difficult because if you want to draft, you need 8 people and each of them gets 6 packs. So that's 2 whole booster boxes, and that's not necessarily a reasonable thing to ask of people. And if you want to do sealed, like no one kind of knew how to do sealed because let's say you open the 6 packs, you might not get a full 30 card deck that's good enough to actually play. So it's a little too luck based. I think this kind of like that's like a Pokemon build and battle kit esque where you get your 8 packs and you get your 26 preset cards, all your champions, all that stuff. I think it's really good. And the 2 cards they added that are new to this and are not playable in like the standard format are Prismatic Spirit and Gate of Clarity. So a brand new spirit, and what it does is on entry you draw 6 instead of 7, but you get to pick 2 colors you can play. So you can be blue and red or red and green or any combination of those you want. So it lets you play more like archetypes that you wouldn't be able to play in actual standard, making the format a little more unique. And on top of that, you also get the Gate of a Clarity, which is a 1 cost regalia item, which you put it on the bottom of your deck on the bottom of your champion's lineage, and then you are that class as well. So you basically get to be double color, double class.
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting way to approach the format. I know that like the two of us had like tested like some kind of sealed early on, and like you're really pigeonholed based on like some individual power cards you got in that, because you can only play one element. So like your decks always ended up being like mostly norm cards, and then like whatever really good like SR or rare that you happened to pull, you play that color. I think going into multicolor and multi-class and letting you do sort of like any combination that you want really makes it like a unique and interesting experience.
Yeah, and like I said before, I think it adds a lot of parity to the format too. Like I think the replayability of these sealed kits are going to be really high because it just gives you more options as a deck builder. Like this game is fairly restrictive in its deck building, unlike a game like Magic, where you
Mhm.
can play 5 color if you want. But I think this is going to be a really unique way to play the game, and I think they're doing a good job with it. I'm excited to see what the extra cards are in the sealed pool that they give. It's 26 cards. It's all of the mainline champions plus 8 additional. 2 of those are Prismatic Spirit and Gate of Clarity, but then there's also 6 we don't know yet.
4 dungeon guides. Thoughts?
I mean, as long as they don't have any dungeon guides when they announce that, that is good with me.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I could see that is actually an interesting point. I could see this as a way to reprint Dungeon Guide effectively too, because also if you reprint Dungeon Guide in this, because Dungeon Guide's currently, depending on which kind of copy you get, anywhere from like $26 to like 32.
Mm.
And I think this would be a good way to not only get people into sealed because they want the Dungeon Guide, but a good vehicle to actually do a reprint that's not inside of a set and not a promo.
Yeah, I think it like even dungeon guide aside, like in general, I know that like Pokemon does this too with their pre-release kits. Is they will just like sneak in some older cards that they wanted to reprint anyways. And then you're like, oh, cool! I just have more copies of that card. That's convenient. So like dungeon guide aside, it could be anything that they're like, we probably want more of this card in circulation. We'll just tuck it into the sealed kit, and now there's more of them.
Yeah, and I think I would. I know we're getting off on a little tangent here with it, but I think I would actually like to see like Dungeon Guide reprinted in here because I don't think you can do an SR effectively because I think that deteriorates the value of SRs going forward. But Dungeon Guide's a very special case of being a generic rare that everybody wants. Is probably fine for sealed. It's the reason they were said it wasn't in the starter decks but was in the prelude decks is they thought it's a really strong card, but new players don't know how to use it very well. So it leads to like a bad learning experience. But I think this is a good product to do it in if they're going to do it.
All right. Hear me out here. All right. You put dungeon guides in the sealed kit, like just like 2 of them, and then you have a chance at a dungeon guide CSR.
That would be that would be really cool.
You know?
Um, in all the products, they do usually have so well, not usually, but except like the prelude decks, which is from the Kickstarter,
Mhm.
every product has had a chance of something greater. And I wonder if they might do that with this, or they're going to stray away from it because it actually just includes packs.
Yeah, that's true. Right. You could also just pull a CSR out of the packs. But I mean, imagine the crazy box value of hitting a CSR out of your kit and then also a CSR out of your packs, right? That's insane. You're crazy.
It'd be pretty cool. I'd be down. I mean, I'm always here for more blame.
True, true. The signatures look great. Happy to have my more cards. Full signature main deck win. Uh, moving on. We're gonna talk about some meta stuff. So there was a couple bigger tournaments happening this week. So we can start with our Discord tournament from last week. We had was it 24 players on webcam, right?
It was 24 players, so it was an increase of 2 players from the week before. So the community's growing. And if you want to be a part of that community, follow the link in the description to the Yeti Gaming webcam Discord tournament server where we play every week. We're playing tonight.
We are, yeah.
$5 entry. We get event packs. You know, everyone has a good time.
Yeah, it's great. Also, there's a lot of players who like that's their first competitive experience, and they're every single time people are like, I had a great time. My opponents were all friendly. They're helping me learn the game. It was awesome. And yeah, so if you want to play, come play here. It's like the best, most consistent place to get games, especially if you're looking for webcam games and not tabletop
True.
sim. Um, but yeah, so last week, Wind Lorraine took down another week in a row. Which isn't exactly unexpected, but it's cool when any deck gets a back to back. And actually the same Wind Lorraine player, and this is different from our event. There was a big the big tournament in the marketplace Discord. They did what were the details on that? I don't know all of the stuff about that one.
So it was free entry. They were giving away. There was like a bunch of money. They didn't announce the prizes until like a couple days before, so I think that probably throttled their attendance a little bit. And it was on Tabletop Simulator, which also probably throttled their attendance a little bit. But it was like, I think after that started round one, I think it was like 46 people. It might have been 48. But yeah, they just cut to like top 8 after X amount of rounds. There was a top 8, and it ended up being Fire Eye ended up winning.
Yeah,
Kind of,
Fire Eye won over the same Wind Lorraine player that I was just talking about. Got second in that one, so
yeah.
she bleeds. Lorraine is not unbeatable. Isn't that crazy?
Who would have thought?
Who
But
would?
I can't confirm it was the same win list that was being played because I don't think they've revealed a deck list
Mhm.
from the marketplace event. But you know, I think especially in like the last like week, 2 weeks, you've had so much. Oh, the meta is solved. Oh, Lorraine is too broken. Nothing beats Lorraine. And I think that comes from a lot of people only playing Lorraine and not testing other decks. So I think Lorraine is very beatable.
Mhm.
I actually think it, especially Wind Lorraine, I think Fire Lorraine personally is a little better into things outside of the meta that aren't Lorraine, but Wind Lorraine beats Fire Lorraine. So more
True.
people are playing Wind Lorraine. And I think Rye just beats Wind Lorraine too. I mean, Rye won that game 2-0
Yeah. Well, and
and it won
something
the
that
whole tournament.
I've been thinking about, like when I've been looking at Wind Lorraine lists and like trying to build up my own, is like I look at some of these lists that are like super focused on like Ascension combo. Like you're like, oh, I can loot prismatic, I can banish all your cards, like that's great. And I look at those lists and I'm like, what is your win condition? How are you winning this game? And like sometimes the answer is I'm gonna infuse this sword like 4 times and attack for 15, and that can get you there. But if your opponent has like, some kind of counterplay like a water barrier, spell shield arcane, something like that, you're like all of a sudden your one plan doesn't work. And I think a really nice development from this list specifically is that they weren't just on Ascension combo; they're also playing on souls, which helps push for more damage at the end game. And I think I really like that development because I think without a card like in Soul, you're sort of missing like an additional way to push for game in a Wind Lorraine list. So even in just Wind Lorraine, which is like obviously one of the most popular decks, there's still being new developments added to the deck. Like there's no way that there's a perfect 60 quite yet.
Yeah, and I'm going to assume a little bit that Jimmy's deck in the marketplace Discord was the same as ours. I'm going to assume it was the same list. Link in the description, by the way. But you know, he was playing the old Lorraine. I want to say the old Lorraine, but the one that gets +1 attack, reach regalia, or banishment. So it makes it to where his unsoul turn does 13 damage. possibly 14 if he already swung with the Sword of Seeking once. But 13 to 14 damage usually. It doesn't play Dispersion. It does play 4 Banner Knight, which is pretty big because that pushes an additional 6 damage.
Yeah,
But we get to 20, so it's like it has the potential to be like a 2-turn kill. You kind of chip away with your Tactical Surgeons and even Dungeon Guide, Phalanx Captain. He plays 2 of them, damage slash here and there, and then you just swing with Insult and kind of win. But it's a little bit slower. It feels like it's not Fire Lorraine. It's not Fire Lorraine that can just out of nowhere Rending Flames you for the game.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and
Like
I think like this like
you at least usually get a turn for this.
yeah, and I think this slower, more reactive style gameplay is interesting and is a little underexplored. A lot of people are sort of just like really focusing on no matter what element you're playing, just kind of like rushing to your end game and then just trying to like do some kind of combo for game. But I think there's really a lot of value in some of these reactive cards. I mean, Veiling Breeze is an insane
Oh,
card, like in a vacuum. And even water cards like you got like Shroud and Mist is a very very good card. Stuff like that that's like more reactive. I think as people sort of develop and start figuring out other styles of gameplay, and it's not just rush 3, do a combo, win the game. Different decks are going to start developing. It's going to be really really interesting.
yeah, yeah, and I think we could start seeing development of sort of a triangle format as more decks get played, Rye gets more play, where Rye beats Wind Lorraine. It just generally does. It can win off a Veiling Breeze to 10. Like
Yeah.
I am confident, and I have been confident that Riot is just good into Lorraine right now, at least Wind Lorraine. And then if you start seeing Rye get super popular, you probably start seeing Rush get a lot bigger.
Mm-hmm.
You start seeing because early game Rush. I was playing Rye this Saturday, the Yeti local, and I just lost him turn three twice.
Yeah.
I went 3-1. I beat everyone really badly, and then I just lost on turn 3 twice to Fire Sander because you just can't do anything against it most of the time.
It's just so fast. Yeah, decks like that. And
So yeah, go on. Sorry.
yeah, no, I was just another thing, just like about this version of Riot, because there's the finals was recorded. There's a video of it posted, and there were even some like main deck changes that you might not instantly consider in a deck like Rye, because typically Rye plays kind of like a combo deck. You build up a bunch of levels and then you do a whole bunch of like Arcane Disposition, and then you gain levels, you draw your cards, and then you go blast, fireball, I win. But this one was playing a couple cards, like Deflecting Edge, I think was the big one. A lot of times people have put Deflecting in the sideboard, but I think there's a really good meta call made, which is like, hey, Lorraine decks are popular right now. I'm favored into Wind Lorraine, but I'm probably, a little more even into Fire Lorraine. And if I can Deflecting their Rending Flames, I probably win that game, right? If I draw Deflecting and they Rending Flames me, I can probably squeak up. It gives me a little bit of an edge in that matchup, and I mean, it obviously worked out for him. He won the tournament, and like,
yeah,
I think.
And I think go on. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
And I think because I haven't seen a lot of Fire Rise. I haven't seen a lot of Rise play Deflecting Edge. My current list is not Fire right now. I'm experimenting with something else, but I don't play Deflecting Edge, and I think it takes a little bit of time for people, especially in a new card game, to get used to having to add strategies into their deck that counter other decks and not just, I'm going to YOLO into my strategy and try a solitaire, which I think we've seen a lot in this game. Because it's brand new. We can't expect people to, in a month of a brand new game, not necessarily a brand new format, but a brand new game, know to play Deflecting Edge in their deck, even though it's like in 3 months that's going to be like, oh, it's kind of obvious. Like Lorraine plays a bunch of things that deal damage to you, that deal attack damage. It plays Rending Flames. That's a pretty good counter to that. Why wouldn't you play that? But it's just not as obvious.
Yeah.
So when Jansu, I believe, was the winner, puts that in his deck, and a lot of Fire Rise, start putting that in their deck, it gets to where, okay, that one Deflecting Edge might just win me the game against Lorraine, or it might just win me the game against Rush. Just getting, because it's essentially just heal 3, or against Rending Flames it's heal 6.
Yeah, it's so good against Running Flames. Like, and anybody who's ever been like, man, Running Flames is so good, it always beats me. Just play some Deflecting Edges. You'll find you'll have a much better time against that card.
Yeah, and I think that's another reason why water specifically is like a very underutilized class right now. I think water is very good.
Mhm.
I did a big write up on water sander, and I'm working on more water decks, and I think it's very good into a lot of the meta. I think it's really good in a lot of stuff, but pe- people can't necessarily wrap their head around that it's okay to draw and pass. It's okay to play cards that only just eat an opponent's turn or only just eat an onslaught.
Yeah.
Counterplay is a very unintuitive thing
Mm.
in card games in general, not just this game, not just because it's new, it's just in general. And it's definitely the hardest thing to learn in terms of deck building. And I think as everything develops, we're going to start seeing more, like I said, more of like a triangle format where we're going to see Rush beats Rye, and then Rye beats Lorraine, and Lorraine beats Rush. But it takes some time to get that. The
Hmm.
meta is not solved.
Yeah. Oh,
Meta is not
absolutely.
solved.
I think like a
But
pretty decent example for like when you have to add some kind of counterplay cards, then it depends which ones you're playing based on the meta. Is for anybody who has played a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh, they've got hand traps, which are effectively you play a card from your hand and it counters a specific thing, but it's usually very specific what each hand trap counters. And so usually decks will dedicate even sometimes like a third of their deck to just those counter cards, but they change in popularity depending on what are the best decks, because you're not going to play a card that doesn't hit the best deck even if it hits like the fourth best deck. You want to like gear your deck towards what you're expecting to play against. And I think as more time goes on, people will, and also as more sets are released, like there will be more counterplay available, and you'll be able to be like, well, what decks am I expecting to play against? What cards do I need to put into my deck? What cards can I afford to take out of my deck that are nice to have but maybe not necessary? And then the list will start, fleshing themselves out as not just being, this is my deck that does one thing, and if I don't do that one thing, I lose, and if I do that one thing, I win. And I'm really excited to just see like how deck building develops as more people play the game.
yeah, and like I think that's a really important thing, is like people might get discouraged. Like, you know, Lorraine is beatable. If Lorraine starts being, the predominant meta, it's beatable. You just like it's just when a deck takes over the meta, there's a reason it took over the meta. And trying to counter it with decks that were already in the meta that lose to it, that like just doesn't work. There has to be innovation. You have to try new things, and a lot of the time those new things will fail. Like if
Mhm.
it was obvious, if it was people would generally be playing it.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it's the learning curve of a new game. I think this tournament is a really great example of the meta is more dynamic and more diverse than people might imagine. Yeah, there were still six Lorraines in Top Cut, but it didn't win.
Hmm. Yeah. No. Absolutely. I think that's most of what we got on meta stuff right now. I think the meta's in a really interesting place at the moment. I don't think any one deck is too overpowered at all. I think there are some decks that are certainly very good, but maybe this is unfortunate for Sylvie, but I can think of in my head like two decks for every champion that's not named Sylvie, I guess, and also the lineage breaks that are like really good, but that's still like 6 or 7 decks in the high meta. That's really good. It's really diverse if there's like 6 different decks that are all very playable.
Yeah, because not every deck needs to be tier 0 or tier 1 anyway. There's a reason there are tier 2 decks and tier 3 decks, because those decks are playable. Like Fire Xander isn't tier 1 right now. It's just, there's a lot of Lorraine. It has problems. But, it's still a very playable deck. It's a very cheap deck to play too. It's easy to get into. And it's really, really good into Rye. So,
Yeah.
maybe we'll see it move up a tier if Rye starts becoming more of a meta share.
And like I think there's there's a reason that every card game tier list has a rogue category, because rogue decks are very often not something you would put on the tier list, but they might have like one really really good matchup. I think Fire Xander is actually a pretty good example of this, where you're like, it's definitely not a meta pick, but if you think everyone's going to be on Rye and you decide to bring Fire Xander, you are going to demolish the field. And it's like it has one really good matchup, but if you're into a field of all Lorraines, you're not gonna have a very good time at all.
No.
So so there's picks like that just like hard counter one deck, and you're just like sometimes you just got to play for the field. You got to be like, I'm gonna play against mostly this deck, and I'm gonna counter that deck, and if I get lucky with my matchups, my bracket, I'll just go crazy.
Yeah. No, it's going to be. I'm excited to see how things develop from here, because I don't think we really have any like. I'm not. I just have such a problem considering like a tabletop simulator tournament like huge. I know this was a tabletop simulator tournament, but like it's so stifling to like slower decks like Water Xander and stuff, to where
That's
it's
true.
it's a little bit of a bastardized meta.
Yeah, I
It's a,
mean,
well, not saying FireEye isn't really good into to Water Xander, but it's a little bit of a bastardized meta.
I mean, like what that finals match was it was a 2-0 victory for FireEye, and I think the entire match was like an hour and 20 minutes long almost.
It was
Like
long. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, very very long match, and it was a 2-0. Like, can you imagine if it was a 2-1? That would have been like a 2 hour game. Like, there's not a lot of people who really want to sit down and play tabletop simulator for 2 hours.
And
I know I certainly don't.
you simply can't in a tournament because you'll go to time so fast.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We want to
Mm.
move over to some market stuff. I know we kind of hit on some price stuff earlier when we were talking about dungeon guides, but what do we got on the market right now?
Yeah, so let's talk about Alter real quick, because that's what we talk about here. Alter's crazy. So as
Sure
of
is.
literally follow me, I'm pulling it up right now, so I have the most recent market data. We have boxes. We have boxes that have sold today for $119.
Sheesh.
Um, we only have 6 listings of Alter boxes remaining on TCG Player. One of these people do have 20 boxes, but it's one box at like 119, one box at like 119, and then 20 boxes at 119, and then it jumps to over 120. But the market's really, 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 really shallow on this stuff. And a good reason for it having that jump is segues right into the expected value of these boxes. So I ran this
Whoa.
last night. Well, I guess it was technically this morning. The total EV for a box right now is, let's start at not foils. The total, if you open a box of Grand Archive Altar from just your non foils, you're expected to get $87.99, not including like any uncommons that aren't like $1. So all just off the bat, really good. Not including your CSR, you're at basically $88 of value. Once you include your foils, and foils do take up a large amount of this, your expected value is $141.84. There is a large amount of that ate up by the CSR. That's about 18, but it's just a lot. There's a lot of value in these foils. But if you're opening a booster box of Grand Archive, you're on average your expected value is $141,
Yeah,
which is crazy.
that's
Which is
really
crazy.
really really
So
good. Yeah. You
because
mentioned I was gonna say
sorry,
you
go on.
mentioned the couple of uncommons that you like weren't considering, the ones that are over $1. Which ones are those right now? Which like the good
So
uncommons?
you're looking at Frostborn Paladin. That's a really big one.
Mhm.
I'm actually going to pull up that listing right now because I want to see how many are left. Frostborn. Because last night it was like 0. Yep. So Frostborn Paladin, I was running the EV. So when I run expected values stuff, I only go by whatever like the last sold was. And if it hasn't been sold in like the last like let's even say week for foils, I put it at like a price floor. So this is a fairly conservative estimate actually on these foils, because like, yeah, there might be the lowest listed foil restorative slash is $20, but if none have sold, I'm only accounting it as $4 towards my expected value. But so Frostborn Paladins right now have been selling for about $4.70, $4.90, right on that $5 cusp. And then there are none listed less than $9.99. So we'll see if any of those actually sell. But Frostborn Paladin, and then you have like Hasty Messenger, and you have oh shoot,
think it's Young Beast Bonder, right?
Young
Is she
Beast
still
Bond.
up there?
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for the save. Yeah. So those are like the big ones that are like $2 plus.
That, I
And
mean,
then you get to, like, you can have a creative shock at like 80 cents and stuff like that, but those are the big ones that we're like looking at for our values, because those are the ones you're really excited to pull.
it's crazy that there are uncommons that are like more than $1. Like you get a
No,
lot of
it's
uncommons in a
wild.
box.
Yeah, you do get a lot of uncommons in a box, and I think the scarcity of uncommons as well really drives into that. Yeah, your big ones are Frostborn Paladin and Young Beast Bonder, which were not in first edition. So if
Yeah.
you kickstarted, you will still need those. But Hasty Messenger is just like a staple in red, and that's kind of where you're seeing the other value be in terms of uncommons. Um, in terms of everything, you have other jumps this week. You have Reckless Conversion. Last week we're about $8, and now lowest listed is 17. And the real big one that I think got the most attention this week was Lightweaver's Assault, which went from about $20 to jumped to over 40, and now settle around that $31 range, which I think is a very reasonable price for that card. Lots of people trying to get into Xander right now. Lots of people buying in, which I think is cool.
Yeah. I mean, Xander, he's cool and he's good, and as more people experiment with cards, they realize that hey, maybe Lightweaver's Assault is a crazy card. Maybe that card is insane.
One
Yeah,
one go. One thing I do want to touch on though, on this expected values, a lot of these foils are fairly slow burns. So while that's the reason I'm being so conservative with the foil prices, is because sometimes they just don't sell.
mm,
And I think a good reason for that is one, the game is new, and the foils are very, or two, the foils are very scarce. And when you have that combination, the incentive for people to bling out their deck is low when they're trying to figure out what deck they want to bling out. So you
right.
have that issue there. And the foils are very scarce. So on some foils, you might not be able to buy a playset online. It just might not be there. So if you're trying to bling out your deck, if you want 4 foil hasty messengers, you might just simply not be able to buy it. So you might just not be able to bling out your deck. And I think that a big third reason is foil champions are impossible to get.
Yeah, this is true.
And when you're someone who wants to bling out your entire deck and you literally just cannot buy a foil level 2 Lorraine or a foil level 1 Lorraine on the market, that's a bit of a disincentive to buy everything else. And it's not a huge group of people that are going to have that issue. But when you're talking about a market where the deepest listing of foils is maybe like 12, one person buying 4 of those is a massive market share. And even removing one person from that pool kind of hurts the market a lot.
Yeah,
So,
that's
so
true.
the foils are interesting. If the foils were selling pretty quick, even like one a week, and we have a pretty good success selling foils on the Yeti Gaming website. That's where we sell all of our foils. We don't have them listed on TCG Player. That EV actually jumps up a little bit. So the expected value of the box is weighted towards foils and non-foils pretty evenly. But if you're like, I'm going to try to open a box and get money out immediately, on the foils it might be a bit of an issue.
Yeah, I think like on the point of like foil champions being hard to find, I think another thing about that might be holding people back from attempting to bling out a deck is that foil spirits don't exist. Like
It
you
do not exist.
literally can't get a foil spirit right now. The closest thing you can get is if you top 8 Ascent right now, which is the CSR spirits. Um, but yeah, so like if people are like, I'm gonna, because I feel like from my perspective, if I was gonna bling out my deck, I would start with my material deck because it's a
Yes.
smaller deck, right? And it's like, right, you only need one of each card. It's great. So I would look at it, and then the first card I would look at is my champion line, and I'd be like, the very first card I play every game is not going to be a foil. If everything else is, that makes me feel weird, you know?
Or it's weird. Let's just use Xander for instance. I mean, Xander level 3 There isn't foil off. There isn't the CSR. You cannot bling out, even excluding the spirit. You cannot bling out a Xander deck. You're forced to play all the bling around it, and then you end at a common. And I think that's just a bit of a disincentive for people. And I think we see that a lot. I touched on, it's a slow burn, but I think we see that a lot in the prices of cards too. Like you would expect, when a card is like even like $10 raw or like $8 raw, as an SR, it would be pretty expensive. But like as we see cards like Arima is a really good example. Um, and some other SRs, like that card just steadily increases in price. I think it's like $9 now, and from like $3 to 9 over the course of like 2 or 3 weeks. The foil price has stayed exactly the same that entire time.
Mm.
So the demand is there for the regular copies, but it's just no one cares about the foils.
Yeah, and I think that'll change moving forward. I do actually think as we get into like regional season, people might. I know this happens a lot of other games. People like to pick up the fancier cards as they go to travel for events. So that might change the market a little bit on foils specifically, but it'll be interesting to see. All right, well I'm here twice now, so I guess I guess we're gonna wrap up this week. Oh
Sorry, my
wait.
Discord crashed.
All right, cool. It was cool. I was just on both sides of the screen for for a second. It's really exciting.
My Discord just randomly crashed. I don't know what happened.
All right, welcome back. Welcome back. But yeah, so
But
yeah, go on.
that's what I have for market. I mean, the market is strong. Things are scarce. People want to play this game, and that's what's like everything is showing. People
Mhm.
want to play this game. People are excited. And we're gonna see how that continues into once these regionals comes up, once these store champions comes up, once we get set two in a sense. Like, are they going to be able to keep riding this wave? Because that's a difficult thing to do. But I think all signs are pointing to yes. Hopefully, we get a reprint of set one at some point fairly soon. Because I know I need the singles. I'm doing a trade right now that's like $2,000 worth of first edition foils for a whole bunch of dungeon guides and like fervent beastmasters and stuff.
Whoa, Urban Beastmaster.
We need we need SRs. SRs are in so much demand
It's
that
fair.
it's just going to be good. I'm excited for the game. Excited for the future. I'm excited for our spoiler next week.
I'm very excited for spoiler next week. I'm excited to see what other spoilers come out this week. I think right now there's just a lot of hype being generated around the game. We got like the regionals announcement, spoilers are coming out, everything's going crazy. Like it's an exciting time to be a part of this game, and like if you're here right now at the beginning, you really feel like this big initial push, and like everyone's so hype on everything. It's really really cool.
Yeah,
All right, well
but
if that's all we
cool.
got, then that's all we got for this week.
All right. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Don't forget to I'm gonna do it. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Whoa, he did it! Holy crap!
I'm embarrassed. Don't like and subscribe now. Like, oh
Smash
my
that
god.
like button or the button that's down there. Go ahead and kick it or something.
But I hope everyone has a great day. See you next
We
week.
see you next week, guys. Bye.